All right, welcome to the I Don't Know Shit About Comics podcast, the podcast about comics hosted by formerly two people, but now one person who doesn't know shit about them. I'm Brian, and I've got three lovely gentlemen with me tonight. I have Brandon from Apollo City Podcast. I've
Hello.
got Josh Jones from Epic Nerd Time,
What's up,
and
everyone?
Mark Bernal from, our fearless leader from lesser known comics. How you guys doing tonight? Let's start with you, Brandon.
So hyped. Good to see you guys. I'm excited to all hang out. It's been a minute. And Josh, good to meet you. Pretty
Hey,
hyped to
you
mingle a
too.
little bit more besides, creeping on each other's stories on Instagram. So
Of course.
The last time I saw Brandon, we were kind of in another dimension. I don't know if
yeah.
you want to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
actually,
just don't implicate me.
yeah, Mark was not there, nor the host of that event. So dude, yeah, that was a magical time. Definitely an eye-opening spiritual experience that haven't done in quite a while. But glad I had you by my side.
Oh, I'm always glad to have you by my side. Josh, what's going on with you? What's new?
Hey, man, nothing. Either it's work or it's babies or it's music, trying to develop a comic. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod kind of thing. Uh, no, man. One pan leg at a time, man, for sure.
Nice. Well, I'm a big fan of your beard. I think this is the first time we've actually met and
Yes.
sort of met, but wow, you're eclipsing me. Let's just say that.
Well, I got to thank all the products, that sponsor my other show, Mean Beard and Green Beard. Quick shout out there.
There you
Ooh, I'm
go.
gonna have to
Those
try
cheap
some of that
plugs.
stuff.
That's my flex for the evening. You guys come in flexing with the smoke and the Belgian beer and stuff. I gotta flex in other ways.
It
Oh
looks like you
man.
used to play in Protest the Hero, like back in the day when they had those crazy beards.
Oh yeah, yeah. Have you do you know that band, Josh?
I
Oh, you
don't I
might
don't
be.
think I've ever heard of them.
Okay, yeah. We're gonna have to make you an underground metal like shred list.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
there's some gnarly stuff out there.
Yeah,
Um,
Protest the Hero is definitely one of my favorites.
Yes.
yeah.
Wait,
Apparently, well, Brian told me I'm going to Norway, and Brian said that like the amount of metal band T-shirts that I'm going to see is just going to like blow my mind.
Well, not just like t-shirts, but like just the number of metalheads. Like when I was there, I was blown away. I think it was like 1 in 4 people were wearing a Children of Bodom shirt. Like they
yes,
all
yeah.
had long
There you go.
hair and long beards. They all looked like, they were straight out of like Unearth. Like
There you
it
go.
was wild. I was blown away.
That is too cool.
Yeah.
Quick rant. The one time I saw one of the first times I saw Protest the Hero was at Warp Tour way back in the day, and it was the middle of the day in the desert because I lived in El Paso, Texas. They had in Las Cruces, and in the middle of their set, just blasting away. And if you guys know Protest, that stuff doesn't stop or anything. And the drummer just all of a sudden turns to the side midway playing, and then just starts puking. Doesn't ever stop playing, and just pukes his brains out, and then continues, and then one more time pukes, and then just continues the set as if nothing happened. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like
That
you
is
guys
the
are
rally
metal.
gene at its best.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hear about that. Like drummers, they like will throw up and stuff like that. But you
Oh, those
know,
guys just
I,
partied hard. Like I know it.
yeah,
Like this is way too hard.
yeah. I mean, there was one time in the army when I realized I was getting old. Like, and I was in Florida. There was like a bunch of like younger soldiers there, and they were like, hey, freaking, they're like challenging me, like, hey, sergeant, they were doing the physical fitness stuff, and they're like, get on the sprint line, see how fast you are, right? And like, I'm not gonna let like some punk kid like beat me. So I just totally just like whatever. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then I like turned the corner to like around this bush. I was just like, and just like totally wipe my face off all coily, like nothing happened, and get like back out there. But I was just like, oh, I guess your body or your muscles can be like, oh yeah, you can still do this, but then like your stomach is like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. It happened to me on my first job ever. My first, I'm gonna real quick rant one more time. My first job ever, I got a job at a hotel. Had no idea what I was applying for, and they hired me as a lifeguard. Horrible decision. I was like 16, got hired, and then they trained you to be a lifeguard, and you go through all these like things to, I don't know, like you have to swim 12 laps and then pick up a brick from the bottom of the pool and then bring it back up and lifeguard stuff. You got to save people. And at the end of the day, I was like, when you work out, 16 years old, never worked out a day in my life, just like skinny little Mohawk dude. And I was like sitting there, like when you work out, you like want to throw up. She's like, yeah, it happens sometimes. A lot of water, you'll be good. And I was like, yeah. And then I puked everywhere, all over the pool at that hotel. And it was like a Wyndham. It was like really fancy. And then I was just like puke boy for like 6 months. Took a
That's
while
so
to
rock
shake
star.
it.
That's so rock star.
Yeah. I earned the moniker once of private pavement. One of my ex's friends was like, "Oh, there's Mark screaming at the pavement, private pavement over there." That's what they called throwing up, like on the floor.
Dude, yeah, I sound like a velociraptor when I throw up. I'm like really intense. Like I hurt my back one time just because I was straining so hard and like my leg was stretched out. Like I'm noisy. You'll know. I'm not a quiet guy. It literally
Yeah,
rockets out.
Oh man, we
yeah.
used to be friends with, well, still friends with him, but in high school, our buddy Ben the Jew, he puked so hard that he got two black eyes. He blew all the like the capillaries around his eyes or whatever those are, and he had two black eyes from puking so much.
Oh wow. That's intense.
It's a
Wow,
lot
that
of
was
G-force.
Yeah,
yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
he
That's
wasn't messing
intense.
around. But so Mark, we talked a little bit about Launchtoberfest, maybe a little series of podcasts that we're going to start doing because we're trying to get the I Don't Know Shit About Comics podcast back up and running. My former lovely co-host Yvette, she's too busy for us at this time. At this point, so it's just going to be me and whoever's willing to join me. So, Mark, where
Yeah.
did Launchtoberfest come from? What's going on with it?
So I was getting ready to launch my book, Either Them or Us, on October 18th. And like when I was talking to other folks in the indie comic community, like everyone's got a book launching in October, or at least like, we have a couple buddies who launched in September, but they are still like, in their launch window, in October on Kickstarter and stuff like that. And I think it has to do with like, you can't really, it's not a great idea to launch during like Thanksgiving, Christmas season, or like have a campaign that like needs to fulfill during the holidays. So I think like everybody's trying to get their like last comic book in, or launched before the end of the year. But a lot of good people that Josh know and that Brandon knows. Josh has some stuff scheduled, and uh, so I figured, man, let's just do like Launchtoberfest and like let's just get good people that like we also know that have rad shows out there, and then the other weekend we're like, me, you, and Brandon were like hanging out and partying pretty hard. That was like that just sealed the deal for me. And I was like, all right, okay, we gotta spread this love and make I don't know shit about comics bigger than just me and Brian hanging out smelling each other's farts.
So, I mean, we've got two veteran podcasters here. I want to, we're always trying to learn on this show. So, Josh, let me ask you first, what's a typical episode of Epic Nerd Time entail? Like, do you guys have segments? Where does it start? Where does it end?
Man. Well, Epic Nerd Time, it's kind of like a sister show to my other show, Guitar Parts Podcast. It's basically like a Saturday Night Live show. We work up to a main event. Like a little introduction here, a little dirty laundry, what's up, clean up. We have Hero of the Month. We talk about different superpowers. Like Perry, or one of our co-hosts, has Perry's weapon stash, and he'll talk about a certain weapon from like a comic book character that's interesting or something like that. And we'll go off into a 15-minute segment about that. And we'll work into a main event, like a wrestling show or Saturday Night Live. So like the main event might be a snippet of an interview, or we might break down the first 4 TMNT figures from 1988. First show we broke down the 91 Toy Biz X-Men toys. So, it builds, it just ebbs and flows, grows and builds. It's a monthly show, so I try to stack some interviews as well in between there.
So I think obviously a good premise, because I'm already interested. What's the craziest weapon that you guys have broken down and learned about?
Oh man. To be honest with you, this isn't the craziest deal, but this one blew my mind. Wolverine's adamantium claws has a silicone gasket in his hand, so it prevents sepsis. Because like if you got blood and you stab somebody and you shriek them back in your hand, you don't want that blood, somebody else's blood. Like it says it on like the 91 X-Men card that literally he has gaskets in his hands.
Wow.
And it blew my mind. I know that's not crazy weapon, but it was a mind-blowing deal.
Yeah.
But can Wolverine get sepsis?
That's what the gaskets are for.
But I mean, like,
but if he's got
the healing ability.
Yeah.
So like, if anyone is going to survive sepsis.
Yeah, I get it.
But then again, maybe they didn't know it when they installed the gaskets. Like
I said, I read it on the back of a card. Back of the card that comes with the toys and stuff, and I was just, that's kind of mind blowing.
So I'm wondering though, what if Wolverine contracted HIV? Would that take down his immune system and take away his healing powers? Is AIDS the kryptonite to Wolverine?
I think ex-girlfriends is like the kryptonite to Wolverine, right?
I feel like, why haven't they experimented to like give him like diseases and then see with his blood, like how it heals it and like, changes it and then use that for science? I don't know. But there's so many things and they could be doing better for the universe. I guess maybe that's what Krakoa or whatever it's called is for. I don't know. There's a whole thing with Jonathan Hickman stuff right now.
That was the whole in the TV show with Apocalypse and the technovirus, and he gets
that's right.
And then like Wolverine's antibodies is what saves it. Like, yeah.
Use that for other diseases.
Yeah,
that's what they should do. They know they can do it.
So we can go back to not wearing a condom.
Yes.
All right, so Brandon,
you could be a real hero. You can be a real hero, Wolverine.
Yeah, save us all some grief,
Brandon, give me the rundown of the Apollo City podcast.
Apollo City Comics is this really, it's kind of blown up in a different direction. It's anything and everything comic book podcast. And I know that entails a lot, really, because we started off just doing comic book reviews, not reviews, really. We'd go through books and analyze them because Brandon and I are both writers and we wanted to continue studying the craft after we finished college. So we wanted to study, the writing, the structure, panel layouts, just study comics, and also have fun as if we're all hanging out in a room and just like enjoying a book. It's like a book club with your friends and you're all checking out Silver Surfer Black and being like, Donny Cates the shit and Trad Moore is just fucking insane. Look at this panel. But also like looking at the pacing and looking at the story structure, looking at the writing, and how it, and we don't do like what's really trending it's rare that we do. Like we kind of just do stuff that we really enjoy. Like we did a Paul Pope book, one of our lowest episodes, just because like nobody really knows about Paul Pope, but we cover stuff like that just because it's fun for us and it keeps us growing. And we'll do like movie commentaries, Batman the Animated Series commentaries, and a big focus of ours as well is getting indie creators on the show, because us as aspiring writers and creators, we want to help people get out there, because if we had that platform and we had that opportunity, we would fucking jump at it, so we want to help indie creators get out there. That's how we met lesser known comics and came across all these people. They're one of our first batch of interviews last summer. Plus it saves us the grief from reading and doing all the camera work and all that. So great. But also, it's just this crazy little beast. And our Instagram, I run it, so it's like my only Instagram, so you get like a real feel for who we are. We're not comic book nerds who like know it all. We don't. I mean, I have to we Google stuff on the show all the time, and we're not ashamed to say we don't know, but we're kind of just like the everyday just comic book reader that's just trying to have fun and enjoy the stuff, take the pressure off. That's the whole thing about it. I feel like comics had so much pressure and you had to like know so much at a certain point, and then people were kind of being rude and mean, and you see it all over the internet. And so we're just kind of like the guys that are just like, just come hang out with us, read some comics. Have you checked this one out? Because we want to show it to you. And it's typically not what you've maybe read or maybe you haven't. We don't do a lot of Batman, you know what I mean? We did like 2 Batman episodes. Uh, but yeah, just a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that. By the way, great follow on Instagram. Brandon and I were talking about this the other day when we were traveling to different dimensions. Apollo City Podcast, it's a great follow on Instagram because I'm not wildly into comics, obviously, by my knowledge of them or lack thereof, but I follow it and I check out the stories all the time because he's always posting stuff about like punk bands and like some like a new metal band that he's found and all this different stuff. And it's, you know, a lot of stories like I find myself setting my phone down after I click on them and just, you know, doing something else because it loses my interest. Never with Apollo. I'll tell you that.
Thanks, man. That's cool. Yeah, I just try to share, if I think it's funny and I think everyone else will think it's funny, I'll post it up. Sure, I've offended a few people every so while, but that's kind of the fun of it. But you'll see my animals on there all the time, and I mean, here's some music or whatever I'm digging at the moment. I'm really into the Mars Volta's new album, so I've been posting that like crazy. Yeah, cool stuff like that. And I want to make it immersive, and also you got to beat that algorithm somehow. Like it's a bitch.
So I gotta go down a writing rabbit hole really quick, because as a fellow writer, Brandon, I had to bring up something like Josh sent me. And it's funny that you guys do like a weapon of the week or weapon of the month thing, Josh, because you sent me the thing with the ray gun, and which it always blows my mind, like as a writer, to see other people's processes, um, because Gabe from Digital Listers of Doom told me, like, it was actually about a year ago. He was talking about Gotham City is like Gotham being like a character in of its own, like the amount of time, like the amount of rich detail in that. Um, and you sent me that weapon, and you had all the specs, and this part's like collapsible, and this part's like does this, and here's the utility loop, and I was just like, I felt like so lazy as a writer myself, because like Franco and me, we were working on like samurai books, and like they got katanas, which, like, anybody knows anything about like martial arts, like the sword is very personal to people. And I was like, just fucking give him a sword, like whatever, like, I don't know, like it's a sword, right? It's got a stabby end and like a not so stabby end, and that's how I felt I was like writing, in comparison to seeing like the level of detail you put in to the ray gun. I was just like so blown away by that.
I will admit that has been a big discussion between Doug and myself, trying to get that correct. And a lot of that is Doug laying that out. Yes, it's us discussing this. Ooh, cat ass.
Cat ass. There you go.
A lot of that is us discussing this, but that's Doug. Like, when Doug gets a little bit of money, he does some work, and he does great work. So,
yeah, Doug is a workhorse.
I say this, he little spot. He's been talking to people in the Canadian Special Forces to make sure that the stuff is legit. Like, is this here? Does this work? Is this, because we've got some things coming down the line. So yes, it's very Special Forces inspired.
I love that. I can't wait to check out your stuff, dude. I know we just like discovered each other like, a day ago and whatnot, but that sounds so much fun. I wish Apollo could put that much work into our podcast. Like, I really admire that. I really do.
Yeah, I gotta ask, because you are from Arkansas. Like, are you a gun hobbyist? Are you a gun nut?
I'm not a gun nut, but yes, I have some. We have some guns down here, baby.
Okay, yes. Well, when you come up to West Virginia, we got a farm in West Virginia. We'll go shoot some stuff together. Yes. It's the first weekend I spent with my in-laws. We did the clay pigeons out on the farm, and dude, that is, and everyone should experience that. Like that is just so much fun. And it works for you too, Brandon, because you're a goddamn hippie and you can't kill living things. you know, I mean, that's a whole different story that we still got some beef to squash on.
we got some private discussions going on right now. Some
Just
Okay.
make sure it's not
renegotiating.
vegan.
I gotta get Josh and Brian your opinion on this. Okay. We're at the convention all weekend, like me and Brandon, or not all weekend, just for the day or whatever. And he's like, hey, you know, I picked the place we're gonna eat. It's awesome. Here's the link, here's the menu. I look at the menu, right? And it's like, oh, it's got things like Philly cheesesteak on it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yummy, yummy, you know? And like we get there and the Philly cheesesteak has neither cheese nor steak in it, you know. And I felt like it was such a bait and switch. Like you gotta let you. I mean, you know.
I found the most convenient place for me to eat. That's what it was. That's what I looked for. That was my.
I mean, I know you pretty well, but I don't know you well enough to be like, what the fuck did you just bring me to? Like,
Dude, you just sometimes you just gotta let it hit, man.
Yeah.
You just get it in there and just let it hit. Was it any good though?
I ate it all. I was just high and hungry, and I didn't even give Mark a chance. Really, I was like snacking on it in the car, and then that night, and then the next day when we were driving back, I didn't even offer any. I just kind of ate it all.
yeah, it's times
really
like that
good though.
Times like that, I wish I could smoke weed because, yeah, you know, that I probably would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, probably. I guess that might be a factor
more.
too.
So, like with a Philly cheesesteak, though, like I mean, for lack of a better word, the meat of that sandwich is steak. So when it's vegan, what is that made out of?
It's seitan, and seitan's like I don't even know what really seitan is. Google seitan, and then
Talk to him every night in my prayers. Satan, yeah.
Yeah, straight up. That's exactly how it sounds. But it's like a really cool like meat substitute, and it's like really just like protein rich. It's like SEITAN. I always misspelled it, and Google's like, you meant this, and I was like, yeah. But yeah, check that out. That's what it was made. I don't know. The cheese is like made out of like cashews and some oat milk and shit, and I have no idea. But yeah, it's strikingly like Mark had like a chicken pizza with us that night too, and then he was even just like, so what's the vegan stuff? And then I was like, this is all vegan. He was like, what the fuck? And like halfway through eating a slice of pizza and whatnot, you ordered a salad at a vegan place. That was so lame. I don't even eat salads as a vegan.
You keep the pipes running, man. You know,
yeah.
I'm not as young as I used to be. You know,
what's up, T'Challa?
So I got another question. How long have you guys been doing your podcast? Josh, when did you guys start Epic Nerd Time?
Well, actually, Epic Nerd Time is born out of the Guitar Pirates podcast PirateCon that we did for Lesser Known Comics last year, and we'll probably do again this year, second annual. But it was born out of that and a few of my friends that just like toys. Like we're just getting into like collecting old vintage toys. And then the comic thing just kind of started, like it just fell right into it, and it was like Lego pieces that just worked. And I asked Mark if he wanted to sponsor the show, and before we even had an episode out, he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Probably drinking his Belgian beer, flexing. But yeah, it was born out of that. And Epic Nerd Time, we have 4 or 5 shows. So I mean, it's been about 4 or 5 months. But Guitar Pirates Podcast, we just hit our 77th weekly show. So we've put out a show every week for 77 weeks.
Nice.
So Epic Nerd Time it's the sister show, and it doesn't do, as much, of course. Perry and Canton, the co-host. Perry is a UPS driver, and Canton is a water biologist. So basically, those dudes are busy. And I'm a commercial cleaner who cleans at night. So, I mean, I just gonna do my thing.
Oh, I got a question for you then. Do you clean like restaurants?
No, right now I primarily clean healthcare facilities like chemotherapy places, family practice clinics, infectious disease clinics. We do thrift stores and stuff like that. I would clean restaurants if someone paid me, but right now that's just kind of where the bread and butter is.
I had a buddy who did commercial cleaning like overnight, and he was working for a company that mainly did restaurants. And he told me that the only Chinese food place he would ever eat at after that job was Panda Express, because by far the Chinese food restaurants in the back in the kitchen were just like rats flying out of the grease traps, like all this crazy stuff. And on one hand, I'm kind of with him, like, yeah, it's gross. But on the other hand, I feel like that might be what makes it so good.
There's where the flavor is, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I
Well,
worked
that's
at a Chinese restaurant once, and I was just a punk skater, and they would just sit over there and they'd kind of laugh at me, and I'm gonna sound so bad that yeah, baba cha ba ha ha, Josh, ha 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 ha, and it fucking pissed me off. And at the end of the night, I just walked out. It was one day, but man, it really sucked.
That was a long day, yeah. So Brandon, how long have you guys been doing Apollo?
So sorry, I'm fighting my cat through the entire conversation. I actually, strikingly enough, motherfucker. Sorry. He just bit me. Strikingly enough, Halloween is our 4-year anniversary of Apollo, which is pretty wild. Wild that it's hit 4 years in general. We're hitting like what 125 episodes. At one point, when it started, I had a different co-host. And then like, we moved in different directions, and then I met up with Brandon because we met at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019 randomly, standing in line for Todd McFarlane's signature for 3 hours, and realized that we both like had Star Wars tattoos and were really into Blink-182, and also like played bass and everything. And so we just kind of became friends over time a bit more. We just realized we were just like each other, but just in different cities. I'm gonna fight you, dude. And yeah, so Brandon's been on the show for like almost like well, 4.5, not 4.5, like 2.5 years, 3 years or so. But 4 years running. It was kind of like bi-weekly, and then it went to weekly with me and Brandon during COVID, and we are just blasting stuff out. And this year's been a little weird. Just, life gets busy. As you know, like with I don't know shit, and I'm sure Josh knows, maintaining a podcast is hard, and especially when you try to do weekly episodes, the bitch. But we're pretty consistent no matter what. We always have episodes coming out. Sometimes we just, if you keep up with our Instagram, we'll keep you entertained there at that point too. Fuck.
This is awesome watching you like try and like putting out good information while being like just sabotaged by Shala.
All this Chinese restaurant talk. That cat's mad.
Yeah, straight up. It wasn't me. But yeah, so 4 years, it's pretty wild. And it's been a great run. It's a challenge. I kind of run everything. I edit all the audio, the video. I run the Instagram, and Brad and I will back up on Twitter or TikTok and whatnot. It's gonna attack me. I'm waiting for it. And now we're on YouTube, and we'll eventually upload old episodes on there too, because we just started YouTube maybe less than a year ago. So that's pretty recent as well. We're pretty much everywhere. We're very spread out, and we've networked pretty well, and we have like a really nice audience. It's one of those things like you're always surprised about like who listens to it, and you're always kind of grateful for anyone who checks out your show. So that's why we just keep doing it. Plus, it keeps us reading, and it keeps us meeting cool people like you guys, and it's just kind of just turned into a habit at this point. I don't really see Apollo ever stopping for whatever reason, slowing down maybe, but maybe I don't think it's been so much fun. It's kind of become a big part of my personality at that point too.
So that was the thing, like, and I talked to Brian about this, because Brian, he's at like Sirius XM, and like any show he produces there, like it's all about like viewership or about listenership or whatever, right? So those metrics are really important. And but like to me, what I found that's been super valuable for I don't know, shit about comics or whatever podcasts to work with is like, one, it gets you time to like, obviously like promote, what you're working on and what you do and stuff like that. But at the same time, like Dave Law, like me and him are making a comic book together, and that shit would never have happened if it wasn't for like Brian and him talking about like, growing up like in the same area of California together. Josh is working on the comic with Doug, and that was just by virtue of him doing the interview. Um, and then you have the anthology going now too.
Yeah.
And I think like podcasts are a good way, like obviously for like promotion, but for more than promotion, like I'd say like promotion is like 20% of it. The other 80% of it, it's like sussing out like who are good people to
Mhm.
like to that you're like, oh, I enjoy working with this person. Like, let me find more opportunities to like work
Yeah.
with people.
And
Like,
that's the whole point too. I mean, especially for me in Apollo, like when I started Apollo, I was just trying to find another way into the comic book industry. I had been doing comic book journalism for a while. I was writing for websites. I was doing stuff for like Comics First. They were a big New York website for a while, and they sent me to like New York Comic Con to interview like celebrities. Like I've talked to like William Shatner and Elijah Wood and everyone from Batman the Animated Series, and that was like my way to like meet comic book artists and people and see the industry and try to get into it, and then that website fell apart and then I moved on to different ones and it just didn't have the same vibe. So I was like, well, maybe I can do something like this myself. And I just kind of like picked up a mic and just started doing a podcast, hoping to be like, all right, if I focus it on comics and I do this and this and this can lead me to people and I could, somehow break into the industry and that could be my way into making comics. Because listening to other interviews of creators and all that, nobody has the same story of getting into comic books and comic book creation and any of that. So I was like, well, it doesn't matter how, I just got to find a way and dig until I do it. And actually, fucking 4 years later, it's happening. So just, headway there, it took some time, but it's so worth it. And that's kind of like, that was always the intentional goal. It has all these cool purposes, like what I just said, like whatever a few minutes ago. But the main goal was always like, I want to just find a way to make comics. And that was it. And so finally gonna do it. Just took a bit.
So I got a question for you guys. I don't know if you guys use like a hosting site for your podcasts, but with the one we use, we can see what region of the world the listeners are listening from. I'm curious if you guys have had any like surprising, like, is there like a specific region of the world that you're surprised is like giving your podcast a lot of listens? Because when we started, I don't know shit about comics, we were huge in India.
Nice.
Like we were
actually,
getting like little bites here and there from the United States, North America, South America, but like India was at least 80% of our listens.
it's because they're into dildos and toe picks because that's what we named the first episode.
Jesus Christ.
So there's just a bunch of disappointed, sexually frustrated people in India who's just like, oh, this is not what I thought this podcast was going to be about.
I can answer that really fast. Not for Epic Nerd Time because we only do it once a month, so it's kind of a YouTube thing. But for the Pirates, 6% of that show downloads are from Germany. And I know it's only 6%, but for my little show, I'm just like, there's some people in Germany that listen to this.
It's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Very cool.
We've gotten stuff kind of all over. God, this guy's fucking with my shit. Right now we do have Germany, Australia, UK. The one that strikes me as surprising right now is that 14% of our listeners are from Hong Kong. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's super
Okay.
interesting. Yeah. I just saw that. I haven't seen those numbers in a bit, but yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, you should start commenting on like the one China policy or something like that. Like South China Sea, like geopolitics, and see just like if there's some shift.
That would be awesome.
We're gonna break away from our regular comic segment, talk about maritime policy outside of Taiwan. That would be just to fucking see. I don't know.
Just throwing that bone out there. See what could happen,
What does
Not on
that
our
have to
show.
do with the price of tea in China?
I get what you did there. Well, if you have that many Hong Kong listeners, you should get Peter on from that did the tarot cards for us.
It's true, huh?
He's in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
maybe that's where it's coming from. Maybe he spread some word or something. Like,
Maybe.
he's gonna looking to submit for the anthology too. That would be wild.
He is such a tremendously interesting person.
Yes.
And I think Josh, you may know him. I don't know, but he's so yeah. His whole thing is that he's got a PhD in the history and practice of magic, throughout all these different cultures in the world. So he could tell you like, here's the authentic way in which they practice witchcraft through or magic, whether it's South America, East Asia, Africa, wherever, right? And the interesting part is that so not to get super academic, but like same thing with anthropologists, right? You can read a book on, let's just say like Brazil, but if you've never traveled to Brazil, like you could know everything about Brazil, but if you've never been in there, right? Like what good of you as like an expert on Brazil? And he is really involved in like that field of the history of magic and witchcraft and stuff like that. And he's one of those people who are like, look, like unless you're actually doing these like seances and inducing trances and doing like the practices in which these people actually, were, conducting witchcraft and magic, like what do you know about it? Like you've just read about it. You actually have to do it. And I find that like so bananas, because but they're like, a lot of people still, they only look at it academically. They're like, well, I don't believe in it. It's like, well, you might be surprised that some of this shit has validity when you actually like do it, because Josh, you commented on it about him looking in the black mirror until he sees shit, and then
he has to hallucinate before he makes these things.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind, man. It's very intricate stuff.
I mean, I feel like that kind of applies to anything. I thought about that when I was like reviewing comics and movies and seeing how people review like entertainment stuff in general without knowing what goes into writing a story or a script or like directing, or like they just judge it just to judge it and put their say so just to put their say so, but they don't understand the process and the craft behind it. So they're missing all these other aspects, and they're not paying attention to what's really valuable or really what goes into like creating something. Reviewers in general, that's a gripe I have, but that's a whole different discussion.
So, Launchtoberfest, what do we all have coming out soon? Let's start with you, Mark.
So the ones that I'm going to shout out right now are so I have my own book that's coming out on the 18th of October. It's Either Them or Us. It's Franco who did Good Night with us. So this will be like my first full-length comic that I've ever done, because I did all these minis that are spread along like the lesser known universe. And then the cool thing about this book is, Franco, who's already done 2 like shorter books with me, so he's like at this level of comfortability where I gave him the book and we were working on it, and he just all of a sudden was like, hey Mark, like just totally like nonchalant. He's like, hey Mark, I finished the book. I changed the ending. And I was like, you did what? He's like, yeah, I didn't like the ending. I just changed it. And I was like, okay. And then I read it and I was like, yeah, this is fucking great. So I'm really stoked about it. Franco's a great guy. He's tremendously talented. So I'm really, really stoked about that. In addition to that, we have other campaigns that are currently launched. So I guess I can pass it to Josh because he's going to be interviewing David, right?
Yes. I've got a few shout outs actually. David Luhan, Uriko, the Korean vampire. It's on Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter's already crushed it like you want to stomp a can into the ground. I mean, it's like what, $1,200 over the the goal. Like, geez Louise, man. But that's very interesting. That's this Thursday afternoon. Should be up this weekend. And also the damn price. Bigfoot Knows Karate.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's a fellow bluesman, and if you don't know, like, the titles to his books are old blues songs.
Oh, cool.
Born
That's
Under
super
a
rad.
I
Bad
didn't.
Sign, that's an old Albert King song. So I mean, like, every time he does something like that, I always send a message, cue the Albert King licks, bub, because here we go. Because I mean, that's the dude who's, he's taken these names from. I think the next one is Hellhounds on My Trail. So that's an old Robert Johnson tune.
That's awesome.
Um,
I talked to him a lot, and I never knew that. So that's really fucking rad, man.
he wore a Muddy Water shirt once, and I was like, "Is that Muddy Water? Like, are you a blues guy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Dude, I've I'm in a blues band. Like, it's what I do." And we just went from there. So
How cool.
his Kickstarter starts October 12th. So guys, keep your eyes peeled if you're new to that. Also,
Yeah,
I
well,
want to shout out one guy that I don't know if you guys know much about, but it's Dismay Comics or Dismay Comics.
yes,
His name's
yes.
Brandon
Yeah.
Ingram, and he's
Yeah.
coming on the show later this month. I think it's the 17th, coming on Epic Nerd Time. But yeah, he's got that horror anthology of Volume 1 and Volume 2, Dismay Avenue. He
Mhm.
also has Gallows Man. I don't know if you guys seen Gallows Man, but it's like an old Silver Age, Golden Age story about a guy who hangs people, and his sidekick's called Noose Boy. If you ever read it, man, Noose Boy is a vibe. But anyway,
Dude,
his Kickstarter starts, I believe, October 11th.
And
that's
where
awesome.
can people find these?
You can find these. You can find the video portions at Epic Nerd Time on YouTube, and all of the audio you can find on the podcast at Guitar Pirates Podcast. Because I'm just going to sprinkle those as kind of like a Halloween treat to the Guitar Pirates listeners, because we already do PyroCon for lesser known, and I like to have a little bit of a variety in the main events, so it's just not like guitar crap all the time. So it's
Variety's the
cool to
spice of
throw in
life.
some, yeah. So it's cool to throw in some stuff. Later on the Pirates, I've got a last thing, and I swear I'll shut up. We've got a world record hatchet thrower coming on later this month.
Okay,
So
so I got
dude
a
throws
question.
axes.
So if you're a world record hatchet thrower, is it like distance? Is it accuracy? What are you? What does he
It's
hold the
just,
record for?
I believe it's just distance. I think it was like 100 feet.
Oh wow! And do you have to like hit something 100 feet away, or just
Yeah,
it's like
he hit a
discus?
target. He hit a target 100 feet away.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he just hucked that
Dude,
thing. He was on a
so cool.
TBS talent show called Go Big Show. It's called Joe Axeman White. But anyway, that's enough out of me.
I always see people posting
Oh,
on
you can
like
talk as long as you want. I wish Brandon shut up more. You
Dude,
can talk way
I
more,
was trying to like
Josh.
write down all of those as you were saying them. I was like, this is so rad. Like,
I
okay,
see people
yeah.
on Instagram posting pictures where they're like at a bar with like their friends drinking beers and like they have the axe throwing, and I mean, that looks awesome, but booze and axe throwing, I
That's
don't
what
know if
scares
that's
me
a
too,
combo.
man.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
I
I
look at
think
my
about that.
fingers and I'm like, man, I like to count to 10.
Yeah. I know
Dude,
that'd be an awkward conversation with the kids, right? Because it's like, all right, well, you have 10 fingers. Well, not me. I have 8. You know.
Oh no, yeah.
and then I've seen them like bounce off the walls and everything if they hit like the wrong part of the dude, it's gonna bounce off and then like ricochet and then get me in the crotch and it's gonna like ruin my whole life and I just don't want to risk that. Like, I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, if you had putting this up to YouTube, then we'll send you all the links, and then you can put those in the show notes for all the different campaigns. Because yeah, there's a lot, and then Dan also told me about 2 more. But we'll talk to the folks and try and get them on point in your guys' direction for this month. It's E4 Comics, and the other one is Homebrewed. And they're doing something that's very similar to lesser known comics. They don't keep it under the same. As far as I'm going to meet them all in Baltimore in October. Rather than one company, they're more of like one collective called Savage Sandbox, which like anybody who's just like, yeah, we're all a bunch of people that make fucking comics and we're friends now. Like, I'm just like, I want to know more about you. That's the coolest thing in the world, So, so I'm really looking forward to that. But Dan's in really tight with them. Yeah, that's really cool. Dan's one of those people um, that kind of gave me a kick in the butt at Houston Comic Palooza, where he was like, "Mark, you need to do more conventions because like this is what it's about, like hanging out and having some drinks afterwards, you know, bullshitting with other creators and stuff like that." He's such a good person. And then the other guy, Doug Knight, I always refer to him as the nicest asshole you'll ever meet because he's like this. He's he's such like a ray of positivity, but he will not let you ever make an excuse for yourself, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. He's a
and he'll be
great
like,
guy.
yeah, he'll be
Such
like,
a
oh,
great guy.
okay, that sounds good. Well, all right, if you want to stop being such like, pussy, pull your shit together and like get it done, TikTok,
Yeah.
you're like, oh God, okay, man.
Wow, that was so harsh, but you're right.
It's crazy. We had Doug on the show recently he was our first guest on our drink and draws is that we do every Thursdays. And I'll tell you guys about that right now too. I forgot to even mention that in general. But like after that episode, Doug and I talk at least like 3 or 4 times a week. He's such a great dude. Like what a good connection and what a good person. He's going to be submitting to the anthology as well. I've already seen some pages from him and it's pretty fucking astonishing.
Yeah, he sent me a page of it just to look at. I've been learning lettering, trying to learn how
Oh,
to letter.
cool.
And I said, "Man, do you have anything that's not been lettered that I can just practice with?" And he sent me that. He sent me the page of that, just a page, and I was like, "Dude, no, like, no, you're working on this now. Like, I can't, no." He's like, "It's okay, man. Just don't post it." I'm like, all right,
That's
whatever.
rad.
But yeah, dude.
Your letters look really good, dude. And I mean, I, to so working with Doug, amazing hand letterer, and definitely bugged me. I forgot, but Scott from Cirque Works, he's got a whole master class on lettering, and it's like literally as easy as me forwarding you an email to make that connection happen. And then our new letterer that we use, we still use letter squids. They're tremendous, and it's our new letterer, Amal Desai. He's like the only letterer that he respects outside of himself is letter squids. He's like, yeah, if you're gonna use somebody who's not me, use them. But there's a lot of people, but I think I think you have a tremendous eye for lettering, and there's so many books that get submitted to me where it's like amazing work that's just ruined by bad letters, so there's if you got the eye for it, dude, you should do it, especially as a writer. If I
Mhm.
could do my own letters, like I probably would. It'd make editing a lot cheaper.
Yeah, that's
So
something I've always wanted to dip in. And Mark knows that. I always like when I first met Mark, I was like, I can letter, and he's like, no, you can't. And I was like, but I'm trying. I swear to God, I'm trying.
so you got to explain to me what are the do's and don'ts of lettering? What makes a good letterer? What makes a poor
Oh,
letterer? I mean, other than the obvious, like I write like a 5-year-old, so clearly that wouldn't be good. But what makes someone stand out as a good letterer?
I think like even as a reader or as like, someone who like tries to edit their own comics and everything, just for one, like balloon size, there's so much white space that could be like overused and just taken up. The wrong type of just like font, or if you're not bolding words correctly and like putting emphasis into like the description, I feel. If it just feels bland, like typeface, like the entire issue, and nothing's popping, nothing's like catching your attention. You don't really know what the captions or who the captions are. There's so many things that can go amiss. The lettering is just so important because it carries the actual like narrative. So you need to like, and without having sound effects or anything and being able to actually pop more than you can in regular prose, you need something to really emphasize that type of stuff. So a poor editor is letterer is just gonna miss a lot of those marks, or like an amateur letterer for sure. Like I would miss a lot of those marks for sure. I'm not like trying to like compliment or like overdo anything, but I don't know. I'm trying to. I want to learn how to letter. I haven't like started the process of learning, but it's like there. I'm gonna get to it in like 5 years. But Josh could probably tell you way more about that.
Honestly, I've got into it from a kind of like a kids app on the iPhone at first, and it just had like little bubbles and stuff. And like a $4 app, and then I stumbled onto the Procreate app for iPad, and I asked Doug, I was like, "Have you heard of this? What's up?" And he's like, "Dude, I do 95% of my stuff on this thing. You're fine. It's good." And a few YouTube videos later, like in a few hours of holding my toddler or my, newborn in one hand and an iPad in the other, like I made a bubble on a page, and I was like, "Well, holy shit, I can do this." And then I can't. It's basically just for a beginner like me. I just take some fonts and chop it up and distort it and warp it and let it rip. I
Oh,
mean,
cool.
there's no. I mean, I can't draw to save my life. I'll
Same.
admit that I can't draw and I can't sing.
Same.
So, you know,
We got a network. You got to give me some like amateur lettering lessons at some point. You gotta come to the show and just teach me some shit. I'm fucking cool.
I will send you the link for just the Comic Maker Lite app. That was the first one that I used. Just kind of got me interested. I do like action figure comics and stuff like that.
Oh,
So,
cool. That's
yeah.
rad. I could do that. I got some cool toys. Oh, Mark's muted. He's been muted for a while. We haven't told him though.
It's better that way. Yeah. So I'll give you two examples, Brian. So Jade Louder, he's new to lesser known comics. So he's got these shorts. It's a horror show. It's an anthology. It's launching number 2 in November. But the whams, and the screams, like like. So this guy does it all by hand, which if you got good penmanship, it it fits in with the actual art, you know. So a lot of people though they don't do hand lettering. They'll use digital, which is totally fine. But the problem is that art is done by hand, and if your letters are done digitally, if you don't do something to bridge that gap, it looks out of place,
Mm-hmm.
and the reader won't even know. It's like a cookie that was baked with like an ingredient missing. You get it and you eat it and you're like, this tastes like shit, and I don't really know why. It might be the art, it might be the letters. Like the average consumer is just like, I just don't like it. It looks unprofessional, you know. And to what Brandon was talking about with like emphasis. So I use the Death Wish stuff as an example. This is Letter Squids. It does a fantastic job. You know, the word
Dude, those onomatopoeias, dude, like sick.
Yeah, when she says light it up or light them up, the actual word bubble is on fire. When she says like flamethrowers, like that's a big word. So it actually says flamethrowers. And then the rest of her sentence is just like a traditional word bubble. Um, this one right here with her saying stand back, because you shout stand back, it should look different than the rest of the word bubbles. Um, and me and Brandon were looking at a comic the other day that will remain nameless that like I pleaded and pleaded with part of the creative team to be like, just go to Letter Squids, get them to do your word bubbles, because you spent so much time working on this comic. If you slap some ugly ass letters on it, and I knew the letterer, and I was like, I don't, and I'll leave it anonymous because like I don't like to trash people. But I was like, that letterer is shit. He's a terrible letterer. Like, don't let him ruin your great art with terrible letters.
And that's a big thing too. Like when you have art that's just uncomparable to the lettering, like bad lettering can go on like okay art, you know what I mean? And very amateur beginning stuff, But when you like, especially when you compare it like on a professional level or like a publishing level in that sense, if you're anything could bring something down in the comic. If your words aren't as strong as your art, you're gonna lose someone on that. But sometimes your art can save it if the words aren't that great. But like if you have bad lettering and okay story and killer art, like you're gonna miss components and it's gonna fall apart because the art can't hold everything up. Like the lettering is a big part of the art aspect, like what Mark was saying. And that can just draw you off completely. Like you have just like three different things. Imagine eating like I don't know, and orange, and then I can't fucking think of anything.
Like
Orange, and then
lasagna
something.
without the cheese or something.
Yeah, with
I was
toothpaste
thinking
on it.
more like I was thinking more like a couple, right? Where like they're not as good looking as each other. You're just like, hey, look, you are so ugly that you're making your girlfriend look ugly at this point. And like bad letters have the ability to do that,
Yeah,
like
and
So
then
you
after
are
like
so
reading,
hideous that like I'm no longer attracted to your girlfriend.
and like especially now, in modern days, like Todd Klein like really revolutionized lettering, like with Sandman and whatnot, and what he was doing, at that point. And I feel like if you're gonna have a comic like that, your door is so open of what you could do. Back then it was all by hand, and now it's just like you have Procreate that you could do that on, and I have Procreate. I should be doing that shit. And then you could be doing like you have limitless like abilities to do it great. Like just work on it more to make it great. And especially if you're just trying to balance out that story. I mean, I'm gonna suck if I'm gonna write, if I'm gonna letter something, I'm gonna do a shitty comic that I probably drew because I suck at drawing, and then put my shitty lettering on it so that it's all kind of shitty. And then that way it's like, oh, this is all shitty in general. It kind of goes together. That's when it's okay. But that's how I'm gonna do it.
So Mark, you
Yeah,
said that
it can be adorable, right? Like it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like an ugly person is dating another ugly. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, you guys are making it work. Fucking good for
Yeah.
you. Does it
Mark,
sound terrible? Is it terrible?
you said that when like it's not bad when people go digital for their lettering, but since the art is all done by hand, you said sometimes something is lost if there's nothing to bridge that together. What are some ways to bridge the digital lettering with, hand drawn artwork?
So what Josh has a really good eye for is that he distorts the letters, like he was talking about that earlier. Like, so you have like the default settings of like a certain font, but then you distort it, and you distort it in a way that's similar to, because all art is not a perfect representation of like taking a photo of real life. It distorts certain types of things, and there's certain types of themes that um people maybe make their characters taller, or maybe they make things darker, or maybe they use a lot of curves, or maybe they use a lot of sharp lines. So in the way that, and Josh may not know it when he's actually doing it, what he decides to distort the letters to stay similar to those themes of what the artist was doing. Um, and it's something that's more of an art than a science. It's just you either see it and you jam with it. It's probably if I was to go out on a limb, like Josh is probably very good at um, just jamming out like as a musician, right? Like seeing what somebody else is doing and being like, well, this is the thing I have, and I'll try and make it fit into what you're doing. And it's a weird part of your brain that's I don't necessarily think can be taught.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you play blues licks over pop songs.
Yeah, there you go.
If you know the key, it's like it works and it feels good, but it's like, what in the world's going on? But yeah, it's cool.
Or it's like honestly, like in a really clear way for anyone to understand too. Like it's just like bad CGI, or just like CGI that you're like, you should have just used a prop, dude. Like you would have used a prop, it would have looked so much better. It's like seeing Yoda digital when you're just like, you have Frank Oz, guys. Like just use Frank Oz. Don't go digital with Yoda. Um, yeah, lettering, fucking wild.
In a weird way, it's also kind of like it's how it talks to you.
Yeah.
Certain bubbles emote, whether you're thinking to yourself, whether you're yelling. It's kind of like it's how it articulates. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of like good lettering is going to be somebody who can, convey themselves properly, can articulate, can, make you understand and give you that visual aspect. And if you're a bad letterer, well, then who wants to fucking read it anyway? Because I
go.
mean, it can give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
I
then like,
imagine with lettering, like if you want more emphasis on a specific word in the sentence, you could make it all caps, or sort of what you would do with like texting if you want to add emphasis to something. So I guess you can add like some flair, your own personality to it a little bit.
Yeah, like
what do they call that? Bold, italic, and italic bold.
Yeah. It's kind
even more with that letter squids, they actually like on the word like flamethrowers, he like
Mhm.
put flames around the letters, and not even in like a cheesy way. It just looked like, because you'd be like, if you were talking to a friend, you'd be like, these motherfuckers have flamethrowers, right? Like
Yeah.
how, and you need a letterer who will talk it, like the same way. And it's a visual medium.
Yeah, style is a big part of that. Like what they could do and what they're trying to portray with that. Like the fire on that word flamethrower, like that's very unique. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of creators that would be doing stuff like that. And it's just like I don't know, some letterers I feel maybe like would just be really good at sci-fi, really good at horror, and there's like different things you can do with those different genres in that sense to specialize in. Um I have nothing else to say about that. I ran out. I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
it.
it's also like and it's such a collaborative process because like you want to work with the worst thing any artist or anybody who's working with you is going to do is tell you like I'll do whatever you want me to do because like a good letterer would be like, yeah, there's just too many fucking words in this bubble, like
Yeah.
edit, bro, like you you it's gonna look stupid like if I put this all in a word bubble, you know like because I think a lot of times any of us have been in that situation where you turn the page and you're like, that's a lot of words on this page.
Yeah.
Like the story has to be good enough to be like, well, I want to know what's in these bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yep.
And it's a strange, fun dance to figure out,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like analogies with chicks again, like being like, like what other conditions have to be right where you're like, I want to hear all the words that are coming out of your mouth, you know.
Yeah, all the ones I'm thinking of are wildly inappropriate.
There you go.
Well, if you have the hook, that's part of it too. We talk about like that turn page reveal and everything, and like what cliffhangers are.
Mm-hmm.
Like it came out of that bathroom at Andy's bachelor party. You guys don't know Andy, but Brian does. Um, I walked out of the bathroom, and the chick said it was a stripper, and she said, "Do you know this place is haunted?" And it's like that is such like it's almost like clickbait, right? Like it's like I need to know what else comes in. It's like, tell me more, and then blah, blah, blah. I'm saving up my stripper money to buy ghost hunting equipment. Fucking, like, this chick should be writing comics, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is the way to, like, pull a conversation. I'm just like, I need to know everything about everything that's ever entered your mind now, you know? Uh, so if I flip the page and there was like a word wall, as Doug calls it, like, a word balloons on this chick's story, like I'd be like, yes, because you had me at this strip club is haunted and I'm saving up my stripper money for for ghost hunting equipment. So whatever comes next, I'll dig as deep as you need me to.
Reminds me, I had this idea for like a band. You play like a shitty bar or whatever, but instead of on the marquee, you put live nudes, and then you walk in and you
There
think
you
there's
go.
live nudes in there, and it's just me wailing on blues guitar.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I want to see. That's a
It's a
good
great
gimmick.
band name.
Yeah.
Yeah, live nudes.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's
There
awesome.
was a band in the Bay Area, right, Brian? It was like called like free drink tickets or something like that.
I don't really remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's brilliant. That's good stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Well, do we have any last minute announcements for the rest of Launchtoberfest or?
Yeah. Tardigrade Press there, and that's I'm gonna spell it out loud because I mumble and I don't talk right. Wait, I just had the thing open. They have a Kickstarter that's wrapping up right now. It's TARDI Grade Press. I just feel like people are gonna misunderstand me on that. But check them out on Instagram. They have a Kickstarter going on. It's this killer Sasquatch book, and the art's insane. And I love seeing stuff like that because it's just I don't know what's cool about indie books, and like a lot of people kind of miss out on it too, is that people who aren't into Marvel and DC and stuff and those big two go in these directions, like help support these people because that'll draw you into a different realm of comics that you probably will enjoy a lot more than the big two. And there's no like crazy structure, and it's kind of supporting someone else's art. So if you're just trying to support someone, going the Kickstarter route and going, to all these people we hit up and, helping whoever you can out. We all can't pledge to every single one, but whoever you do pledge to, that helps out that creator and it's making a difference. So check out their Kickstarter. We'll throw a link in the bottom as well. Great people. We got to get them on the show. They're also submitting to the anthology, which is pretty wild. Which I guess I could talk about real fast that Apollo City Comics teamed up with lesser known comics, and we're going to be putting out a punk rock themed anthology. And we opened submissions at the beginning of September. It goes on until the end of November. November 31st is when submissions close. We're looking for pitches or completed work. Pitches can have concept art, so we know what's going on. And when you say pitches with completed work, in the sense of like, if you're going to make something unique just for this, and you're doing other stuff, we want to be able to save people time and also, like give you a chance to go through the pitching process as well. So it's kind of like you're kind of being trained at the same time. We're doing this as a beneficial thing. And that way we could, if we don't move forward with you, we can maybe even give you feedback or something. But if we do, it gives you time to make the art because it's only 1 to 6 pages and you'll have a couple months to do that as well. And we're also taking completed stories. Some people already have some stuff out. And I mean, if you've been published somewhere else before, cool. If you want to submit it and try to get into this, that's awesome. Like, I'm not going to restrict if you have published in the past or if you want to publish it in something else, or maybe it's going to segue into something you're doing later on. If it fits into the whole punk thing, that's what we're looking for. And by punk, we mean, I'm not going to tell you what punk rock is. That's the whole thing about it too, because I hate people who are just fucking growing up and saying that you're not punk rock because you're not wearing the studs and the like patches and everything going on, and you're like, I'm fucking broke, dude. I don't even know where to get that. My dad takes me to like Walmart every, like, I don't know what the fuck. So like in the sense of like punk rock is just like if it's attitude, style, through your art, through your words, through your expression, like whatever you think, maybe standing out against everything else is a punk rock vibe, or just punk, whatever it means to you, and however you can express that in a story. So it doesn't even need to be, the story doesn't need to be about what it means to you, just how you can put it into a story and how it's represented in the story. So just send it our way. Plus, we're asking everybody in the submission form, what does punk mean to you? And that gives me an idea of how it might correlate to. But
tell everybody what Doug Knight wrote in there.
oh, I don't remember off the top of my head.
He wrote under what does punk mean to you? He wrote, "Fuck you, poser."
I love Doug. Doug we were just talking about his page, and he actually gave me I'm doing Inktober, I'm doing the cartoonist kayfabe Inktober, and he was telling me what art supplies to look into and like all this stuff, and sending me like another page, and it's just, he's the coolest, most wild guy. Whenever I send a mean comment to him, I'm just like, at least I know he can take it. Like
yeah.
So where do people submit if they want to submit to this?
So we have if you go to our Instagram page or our Twitter page, just shoot me a message, or if you go to our page in general, there's a link right there. Just like Google submission form, real easy. And if you don't have a Gmail to log in, you just shoot me a message and then I'll send you the link personally. I've been really communicative with every single creator that has interacted with us, and you'll get the standard message that gives you all some guidelines. And then if you have anything in particular to ask, just ask me. I'm very, sometimes it takes me a couple of days to get to it, but I do get to every question, and I do make sure I answer as like well as I can. And that's why I kind of wait sometimes too, because I don't want to give anyone a half-answer and just like totally just blow them off. Like I want to give them the time that they deserve, because they're, acknowledging us, they're following us, they're sharing stuff. I had a creator today share a page that he's going to submit. He's just like, I hope I get in. And it's just like, that's so cool. And that's the whole point about all this too. Just like with the podcast and bringing indie creators on, like doing this anthology. If I was a creator and doing stuff and someone was like, dude, just send me a 1 to 6 page story and we might be able to publish it through a publisher and get it seen and kickstarted, and then you'll get a comp and all this stuff. Like that's the cool thing. Like jump at it, and it's like we can't pay stuff because it's people because like this is my first time doing this. This is my first Kickstarter. This is the first time doing any of that. So it's like I don't want to promise anyone anything and then not deliver either. So who knows what the future holds in that aspect, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
very
better to be
open.
like, oh, we got a budget, our Kickstarter did better than we thought, and then like surprise somebody than the
Yeah.
other way around.
Yeah, I just don't want to be that guy on my first, attempt or even second attempt and whatnot. Like until we have a fluid, all of a sudden we're booming and I know we're always going to do it. I don't want to tell you guys something and then flake out. And then all of you guys hate Apollo because I couldn't pay you guys when I said I'd pay you X amount. Um, I just like a lot of people, like I'm broke and I'm just like, like I work my day job every single day to get through. This is all a passion project for me. And this is what I do in my off time. I get off of work and I'm just gonna try to like go through some missions, talk to you guys, set all this up. So it's super exciting. It's super fun. Um, and I'm super forward about all of it too. So please shoot me a message if you have any questions, if you have any concerns. I always try to find the right answer for you, to guide you through this. And
And why don't you give out your Twitter and Instagram?
yeah, check out. I think my Twitter is Apollo_City. I want to say, or just maybe if you Google Apollo City Comics, it might pop up. But Apollo City Comics podcast is an Instagram handle, so you guys could check that out. That's the most active place I am. So if you really want to have my attention, I kind of just use one app because social media is a bitch, dude. Like,
And if you really want his attention, DM slip a nude in that DM,
yeah, hey, hey, actually, listen to our submission episode. We actually have a whole episode Brad and I did a couple weeks ago where we talk about the anthology and what it's all about, and really intricate into it. And our only rule was no dick pics. So that was very clear on that episode.
I mean, that's how I
Um,
got your attention.
it's a different relationship,
All
a
right.
good guy. And then it's going to be cool because Apollo's doing a bunch of stuff right now. Aside from this anthology, I'm launching my first comic right after that, Teenage Babylon, and I'm not going to give too much detail since it's like still underway, but there's going to be a story in it in the anthology, just a quick short story just to lead you into stuff, and then we're going to have a Ash Can come out, and then issue 1 shortly after that will be kickstarting all of that. So we'll have continuous announcements, and the way this anthology's turned out, maybe we might have more than one volume. So Apollo's gonna be busy as hell next year in general with asking for money.
I mean, you did. It's amazing how many people I put that piece of advice out there. And I apologize with the crying baby in the background. But yeah, it's such like a solid idea to do. You got a punk rock themed comic book that you're doing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and to do a anthology related to that's punk rock themed now, so that you're gonna like create a fan base. You're gonna find a bunch of creators who like care about the same stuff as you. So by the time that Teenage Babylon comes out, like you're probably gonna meet some people who are gonna do, be interested in doing variant covers, you know, or at bare minimum, when you go to tweet your stuff or post your stuff about Teenage Babylon, they're gonna be like, yeah, I care about the stuff that's in this book, and they're gonna repost it. This is really smart from like a community building standpoint.
Yeah, and that's also why like Teenage Babylon was so specific on like the story to get started on too. We wanted to find something that like I'm gonna be doing this for a while and I'm gonna be really focused on the story. So it's a very sci-fi punk rock story with a little dab of horror, like Lovecraft shit in there. And it's super personal and it's super intense. It's hard to write. It's a cool thing. And it's like I'm kind of pouring myself out to this because if I'm gonna build this fan base through this community, and they already know me through the podcast and all that. It's just another introspective into like my life and what's going on. And I think that's the cool part about it is that like if I'm going to do this art thing, it's going to be all out. And, to get that punk rock community behind it, punk rock comic book community behind it, it's just extraordinary. So there's already going to be like a connection in that sense. And it makes us work even harder to keep their attention and to keep supporting us in that sense.
Josh, anything else you want to give out to the listeners?
Oh man, I got a ton, man. What do you want? Who you want?
Oh, no,
Clean?
I'm
What do you
saying
want,
like
somebody-
anything you want to promote for like Launchtoberfest.
Oh, Launchtoberfest, guys! Just check us out. Epic Nerd Time this weekend. We'll have the David Luhan interview. We'll have all sorts of stuff coming down in the month with Brandon Ingram later in the month as well. You can find us on Guitar Pirates. You can find us on YouTube as well with Epic Nerd Time. Other than that, no, I mean, I could go into the stuff I'm doing with Doug, but it's not really, not really applicable to this.
If people want to hear that, they can check it out on which podcast?
Well, anything about that, I haven't really talked about that at all. To be honest with you, I've not really said anything to anybody.
He's gonna announce it on Apollo City Comics, so keep an eye out.
I honestly, to be honest with you, I blow Mark's phone up probably just as much as anybody else because I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you. 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 I'm like a little puppy dog, like biting at his ankles just because, like, yes, he's held my hand a little bit in the writing process and helped me kind of see the forest through the trees, so to speak. So, but no, I haven't said anything to anybody. I've just been keeping it close to the vest.
Okay, right on. And Mark, anything to promote?
Well, I just gotta say, yeah, Josh, that if my phone's gonna be blown up by anything, like to have it be comic book related or have updates about what's happening with the little ones, like that's all day long. You can blow up my phone as much as much as you want. Brandon brought up Tardigrade Press. I'm gonna show off this beautiful cover. My buddy Liam Jones did this variant cover for them. It's so interesting because Liam Jones is a fine artist. Like the fine arts comics are kind of like the jazz of like the art community. So people like doing comic books like the same way as like maybe a cellist plays in like an orchestra, and that's supposed to be like the pinnacle of music, but like comic, like jazz is like one of the like it's that raw, like un unadulterated, music. Same thing with comic books. I think in the art scene. So I just had to show that off because it's just such a beautiful cover. And no, I don't think so. I'm just really stoked that the people that I love are like hanging out and breaking podcasts, on their own, and then also like now together and stuff like that. So, really cool night. Really excited to keep doing comic book shit with all you guys.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. That's I mean, that's a cool thing. Like podcasts somehow all laced us together. And it's kind of like, oh, I would have never expected this out of Apollo. So it's really cool hanging out with you guys and doing all this.
Definitely.
Oh, I'm gonna do one more plug. Check out every Thursday night. We do a live drink and draw. We don't drink, we just kind of draw. Sometimes I microdose. And I'm learning how to draw. I don't know how to draw, so I thought by doing it live and as a segment and required to do it once a week, I would learn, and it's kind of coming along pretty nice. So that's why I'm doing that Inktober shit. So keep up with all that on the gram and the YouTube.
Exciting stuff. Sounds awesome. Well, that's been the I Don't Know Shit About Comics podcast. Thanks so much for coming on with us tonight, guys. And for all of you out there listening, we hope you had just as much fun as we did, and we will catch you next time. All right.
Raucous crowd, there you go.